That interview with executive producer Jeff Proctor is coming up in a little over 15 minutes. Right now, we look inside a new book from author Rebecca Claren called The Cost of Free Land: Jews, Lakota, and an American Inheritance. It was published last week. Claren's book offers an intimate look at the long-term impacts of the Homestead Act through the lens of her Jewish family who received and benefited from land that they bought from the federal government after fleeing anti-Semitism and immigrating from Russia about 100 years ago. Our Land senior producer Laura Paskus spoke with Claren about those stories that she unearthed and about how the Homestead Act enabled millions of Americans, including Claren's family, to build wealth off of land taken from indigenous nations, including the Lakota tribe.
Rebecca Claren, I am so happy to have you here today.
It is amazing to be here. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So your new book, The Cost of Free Land, interweaves the history of your ancestors, Jewish immigrants who were fleeing anti-Semitism in Russia at the turn of the 20th century, and the history of the Lakota people whose lands were taken away by the U.S. government. I have so many questions for you, but I wanted to start with, what did this project start as, and where did it take you?
In a way, this project started in the early days of my journalism career, which was 22 years ago. I was a staffer at High Country News. I was a young staffer there, and it was my first reporting assignment where I got to leave the office and not just report over the phone. And I went up to the Pine, or it was one of my first, I don't know if it was the very first, but it was one of the very first times I was on the road. And I went up to the Pine Ridge Reservation. I got to drive the company car. We didn't have cell phones back then, and we had this like burner phone that we brought with us, like we were drug dealers. And the book opens with this, but I was in the car with a Lakota man who was a buffalo rancher, and I was trying to make friends with him. I was very uncomfortable. I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. And I tried to be pals by telling him, oh, my family used to be ranchers in South Dakota. We were homesteaders, thinking this would make him like me. And he was polite, but he was a bit cold. And it took me an embarrassingly long time to realize what immediately that would have meant to him, which would have meant, well, your family got land that was taken incredibly unfairly from my ancestors by the U.S. government, breaking treaties that were signed between my nation and the United States. And so that's where this, in a way, that is the beginning of this story. And I've spent my whole career writing about the American West, basically, mostly for national magazines. I did write a one-off novel a few years ago, but that also was concerned with people and places that are the American West. And a few years ago, I was hired by an investigative nonprofit to write a series of stories about Native nations and Native citizens. And it was really when I was able to really just write only about Native communities intensely for a few years that I realized, oh, I am so uncomfortable pretending as a journalist that I'm just an unbiased observer to this history and the legacy of these federal policies that are now playing out across Indian country in America. And because I have clearly benefited as a descendant of homesteaders from policies that caused great harm to Native people.
As the great-granddaughter of homesteaders, you write about how the land was taken away from the Lakota, how the federal government didn't just murder people, steal and abuse children, break treaties, and so much more. They also swindled indigenous people out of their lands and out of the payments that were supposed to be held in trust. And yet white homesteaders, including your family, were able to leverage land into capital and wealth. Can you talk about why it is so important for us to continue reckoning with this 100 years later?
I love that question, because to me, it's really at the heart of this book, is to say this isn't history. This isn't something that happened in the past and that we have moved on from. I think a lot of the ways, at least the way I was brought up, I had excellent education. And yet the way I learned this history in school was very much, this happened a long time ago. And I feel very much especially after learning from Lakota elders and studying with Jewish leaders, that so there's sort of this cultural, more of a different cultural idea of time, but also it's just what is so true is that the past, as I think Faulkner said this, like the past isn't past, it's still happening. And that in a way, and I write this in the book, I feel like the past is looped to this contemporary moment like thread through a seam. And so to me, that was what was so important about this history, is that it's happening right now. And I used the way that my family was able to monetize our land to demonstrate in really stark economic terms, this is what this land in some ways has done for me and what it hadn't done for Lakota people. Because, to explain, I pulled every single deed on the land my family had. There were six. My great grandparents were homesteaders. My great great grandparents were homesteaders, and five of my aunts and uncles and their husbands and wives were also homesteaders. And they over and over again would take out a mortgage on the land. And you see, and I was able, because of like original family documents, letters, journals, newspaper clippings that I found from old papers, and then these documents from the deeds office, these mortgage payments, I could see this timeline that they would take out a mortgage on the value of their land, and then they would move, or they would start a new business that was not contingent on weather. My family got into the saloon business that was more steady in South Dakota than farming and ranching. And so you see these little bits of money, relatively little bits of money over time, is really what builds the pathway for them to become middle class and beyond. And at the same time that that's happening, the Lakota, as you said, are not allowed, most of them, to manage their own money. Their money is being held in trust by these reservation, sort of federal appointed mayors of the reservation, as they were called superintendents or Indian agents. And often they weren't receiving their money for a long time. There's documents of people dying of starvation while they're waiting to get their money and their payments off the value of their land that the federal government is supposedly keeping in trust for them and keeping track of. And so you see the disparity. And this is not where my own personal family then completely cross-sects with collective history and collective effort. Sociologists at this point today have connected a person's ability to own a second home, to pay for college, to have wealth, to the Homestead Act. The Homestead Act, legal scholars have called this a massive affirmative action for white people, the Homestead Act was. And there's something to like 25% of Americans living today, adult Americans, descend from homesteaders.
The second chapter of your book is titled The Holocaust at Home, and the use of that word is clearly deliberate, coming from a Jewish writer. Why is it important for us to use that word?
So when I was a kid, I was obsessed with the Holocaust. I now have a kid who's obsessed with the Holocaust, and it's totally unnerving. But I was also like, I wanted to read everything I could get my hands on. I thought I knew a lot about the Holocaust. And yet it wasn't until a Lakota elder who becomes really central to the project, and to me personally, Doug Whitebull, told me, your family, the Jews, they survived a Holocaust. It was horrible, but he had a Holocaust here, and it lasted for 400 years, and no one ever talks about it. And yet when you're in Lakota country, people talk about the Holocaust that happened to them all the time. The way, and I've learned through Doug telling me about it, and then going off and studying and reading books that by many scholars that were written about this, that in fact, Hitler and his legal team based many of their policies on how to restrict rights from Jewish people based on the way America was taking rights from Native people and Black people in this country. That blew my mind. And the fact that, again, it's one of these points where you think you understand. I thought I understood American history and more global history, and suddenly everything I thought I understood was really shaded when seeing it from this Native perspective. So yeah, I use that word very intentionally because that is the way that many Lakota elders who I spoke with talk about it, and I think it's reasonable. Children were murdered. People were starved intentionally to be controlled by the federal government, and they were restricted onto reservations, which Hitler himself used as a premise for concentration camps.
Right. So you also write in your book that America has failed to undergo any process of national truth-telling, reparation, or reconciliation, let alone any real public amends, and that clearly needs to happen in this country. But as you found and as you write, there are also ways for families and communities to be making reparations and reconciliation. I'd like to hear more about the work that you and your family are doing, but also the community work that you've been doing with Rabbi Benjamin Barnett.
Early in this process, an indigenous judge, Judge Abby Abenanti, who's the Chief Justice of the Yurok Nation, and she's also a former California Superior Court judge. She's a total badass, and she's like in her mid-70s. She's been doing this work her whole career. She was the first Native American, I think, the first Native American to pass the bar in California. She runs her courtroom for the Yurok Nation with an eye towards how did we do justice before cultural interruption. And it's all about, she says, and what she's taught me is justice works best when it's embedded in your own culture. So early on, it's before this was even a book, when I was just thinking about it, she said to me, if you want to look at this history and you want to grapple with how to respond to this history, you need to study the Jews. What do the Jews say about how to respond to a harm? Maybe one you didn't directly cause, but one you have benefited from. And that I had a bat mitzvah. I belong to a synagogue. I light candles every week with my family to do Shabbat, but I had never done Torah study. I didn't really know how to do that. And luckily, I didn't have to do it alone. My rabbi here in town, Rabbi Benjamin Barnett, who cares deeply about social justice, my synagogue is a community of people who care about social justice, said, let's do this learning together. This learning will benefit our whole community. And so we spent several years studying ancient Jewish texts and contemporary rabbis who are writing and inspired by these ancient texts to consider what one rabbi in particular said is the sort of foundational sins of our country, that built our country, which is the stealing of native land and the stealing of enslaved people's bodies. And so I'm answering this in a very long roundabout way because it's very important to me that what my family is doing to respond to the reality of our history in America is grounded deeply in this Jewish learning that we did. And also, at the same time, I had many conversations with Lakota elders and asking them, what would be an appropriate response? What would work for you? And it took a long time. It wasn't until a couple years into my relationship with Doug Whitebull, when I had asked this question a couple times, did he actually finally respond. And what Doug Whitebull was a veteran teacher. He was, and he is like a teacher. He never really says, this is what you should do. He sort of just leads you to make connections on your own. And he said to me, he reminded me again of that something he told me about before, which is there's a Native-led effort to buy up when private land comes up for sale in the Black Hills of South Dakota. There's a Native effort to buy private land, and that is held in trust for all Lakota people to use for ceremony and other purposes. And even the U.S. Supreme Court, there's no debate. The Supreme Court in 1980 made very clear, we stole this land. We unfairly stole this land from Lakota. And there's a lot of money sitting in a bank account that the United States said, here, we're going to pay you back because we shouldn't have taken this land from you. and the Lakota don't want it because they want the land instead. So this is a long way of explaining that what my family has done is I have started a fund called the Hay Sapa Recovery Fund with the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, which is the nonprofit that's Native led, that's been doing this work for 30 years. We're not inventing anything here. And I think that's very important. I think that as descendants of settlers, you don't want to just be like, oh, I've got the solution. I'm just following the guidance of something that Native people are already doing. And so we've created a fund, and I've set as our fundraising goal $1.1 million. $1.1 million is not a hypothetical number. It's the number when you adjust for inflation. When I culled all those mortgages that my family received from 1908 to 1960, I think is maybe the last mortgage we got. I made Excel spreadsheets. I adjusted for inflation. I had math nerds check my math, and $1.1 million is the amount that we received off that free land. And of course, we had to pay that money back. And of course, my family worked so hard and really struggled on that land. But to me, that money, it's what we owe. It's our piece of this.
Well, thank you, Rebecca. I loved your book. I learned so much, and I look forward to seeing where this book goes out to, and I'm sure tons of people will read it, but I also hope to see it in classrooms all across the country. But thanks for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Great to be here.